My son told them to stop lying. He said it calmly, without anger, like a verdict. In that instant, everything collapsed. I don't know if I've lost my family, or if I've finally seen it clearly. 3 weeks before Christmas, my brother Zach sent me a text that didn't sit right with me, though I swallowed my thoughts and let it slide. Hey man, this year's tight. We're keeping it low-key. No kids, just adults. Hope that's cool. No kids. Just adults. Coming from Zach, that was bizarre. This is the same brother who last year rented an actual snow machine for his front yard. The guy who once had gourmet hot chocolate shipped overnight from Vermont because Swiss Miss is for people who don't love their kids. The same Zach whose wife, Melissa, starts planning their holiday party in August, yes, August, and once had me split the bill for a life-sized inflatable sleigh ride they rented. And now suddenly, no kids? Weird didn't even begin to cover it. But I didn't push. I sent him a thumbs up, kept it moving. Truth was, I didn't have the energy to fight. The year had already been heavy. Jonah's mom, my ex, had packed up and moved across the country back in June. Instead of dragging our 9-year-old through a custody battle, I let him stay with me permanently. It meant tightening my belt, canceling trips, working longer shifts, but it was the right call. Jonah is my whole world. When I told him about the supposed no kids this year party, he didn't cry. He didn't even ask questions. He just nodded, staring off at the wall like he'd already expected it. And that broke something in me. No kid should be so used to disappointment that it doesn't even sting anymore. Still, I tried to give Zach the benefit of the doubt. Maybe Melissa's boutique wasn't pulling in sales. Maybe, for once, they were trying to live within their means. Maybe. But 2 nights before Christmas, all those maybes disappeared. I'd just come back from the store with a last-minute gift Jonah wanted to send to his cousin, Zach's youngest. Bags in hand, I walked through the door and heard Jonah's small voice from the kitchen table. Why not us? He didn't even look at me. Just tapped the screen of his tablet and spun it around. Melissa's Instagram. A carousel of photos. Their house transformed into what looked like a Hallmark movie set. Dozens of kids everywhere, cousins, neighbors, even kids from their church, faces painted, candy canes sticking out of little hands. And right in the middle of it all? Santa. Not some cheap suit, either. The same professional Santa with the real beard that I remembered from the year I paid for him. Snow machine blowing fake flakes across their driveway. A bouncy house glowing in the backyard. And then, Jonah's cousin, the very one he'd picked out a gift for, ripping open a massive Lego set. Behind him, his name spelled out in glowing lights like he was the star of the show. The caption under it all, creating magic for the best kids in the world. Wrap gift. My stomach dropped. I felt dizzy, like the air had been sucked out of the room. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about scaling back. This was personal. At some point, Zach and Melissa decided they were done including me and my son. Maybe because I stopped footing the bill. Maybe because I wasn't shiny or useful anymore. I don't know. But what I did know. They hadn't just cut me out, they cut Jonah out too. A 9-year-old. And they lied to do it. Jonah went to bed quiet that night, no argument, no tears. Just silence. And I sat there in front of our little tree, dark, no presents under it yet, waiting like I always did until Christmas Eve, because that's when we'd go to Zach's and Santa would find us there. Except this year, we weren't invited. That's when something inside me snapped. I opened my email, pulled up the tuition receipt I'd gotten earlier that week. $12,900. That's what I'd paid for Zach and Melissa's oldest, Emma, to stay at Stanford for her sophomore year. They didn't even know it was me. Mom had called me crying back in August, begging for help after Zach maxed out their credit cards. I'd said, don't worry, I'll handle it. And I did. In one click, nearly 13 grand gone. That night, at 10:03 p.m., I screenshotted the receipt. Sent it straight to Zach. No caption. No context. Just the numbers. I watched as the read notification popped up almost instantly. He saw it. He didn't reply. Not a single question mark. By morning, my phone was buzzing nonstop, 37 missed calls. All from Mom. And I could feel it, something had shifted. Something big. The explosion was coming. And when it hit, everything changed. The first ring woke me at 6:17 a.m. I fumbled for the phone, half asleep, and saw Mom's name lighting up the screen. By the time the 5th call rolled through I flipped the ringer off, because honestly, who can think with that kind of noise at dawn? But the calls didn't stop, they just kept piling up like coals. By 8 o'clock my inbox was a war zone of subject lines. What's going on? Tyler, call me back, please tell me this is a misunderstanding. At 8:45 I answered. Not because I wanted to hear the rehearsed calm, but because I knew she wouldn't stop until Christmas Eve if I didn't. Her voice came out tight and practiced, like someone reading from a script she'd been given weeks ago. Why would you cancel the tuition? She demanded before I could get a word in. I asked her why Zach and Melissa had lied about Christmas. There was a pause, long enough for me to taste my own anger, and then the soft, carefully measured answer, oh, they didn't mean it like that, they were trying not to overwhelm the house this year, it wasn't personal. Of course it wasn't personal. That line can be used to paper over anything. I told her I'd seen the photos. I told her Jonah had seen them and asked the exact question every parent dreads hearing in a child's voice, why not us? You can't unhear a question like that. It lodges into your chest. Mom shifted, fast. Suddenly it was maybe Melissa's idea, maybe Zach didn't know, maybe they were planning to invite us at the last minute but the schedule filled up. She suggested I might be overreacting. Overreacting. The word landed like salt. I told her I wasn't overreacting. I told her I'd had enough. I'd already paid for Emma's semester at Stanford, $12 900 gone because mom called crying and I stepped in. I'd fronted Jonah's school trip when no one else would. I'd split catering bills and deposits and Christmas extras in the past like it was normal. No one batted an eye then. But now? Suddenly we were the ones being difficult for calling out a lie. By noon the family chat trickled into my phone, gentle at first, then turning sharp. Maya texted, "Are you okay?" And followed up with messages that nodded toward misunderstanding. Maybe you saw it wrong, maybe Melissa's heart was broken, maybe Zach was trying to protect you from feeling obligated. Obligated. That little word made my blood boil hotter than the coffee I hadn't yet had. Protect me? Who protected me when I maxed my own card to cover Jonah's trip last spring? Who said, "Let me help" when Melissa insisted on that overpriced tapas spread last December and then asked me to split it? Who stood up and said, "You don't have to pay" when Zach asked me to front a deposit for Emma's summer program in Italy? No one. I'd been the one stepping in, again and again. Now they wanted to rewrite the past like it was some cozy fairy tale where everyone holds hands and shares burdens equally. I put my foot down. I told Jonah we weren't going to Zach's this year. Santa will find us here, I said, forcing a smile I didn't feel. I wanted this Christmas to mean something honest for him, not a gaggle of Instagram perfect moments where we were conveniently missing from every frame. When I told him, he blinked and asked, "Did I do something wrong?" That question cut deeper than anything Zach or Melissa could have done. It's a hard thing to hear from your kid, that he feels invisible. So I told him the truth. People, even family, make terrible choices sometimes. It isn't his fault. He nodded like he understood, but the expression on his face was hollow, like a kid who'd learned disappointment as a normal state of being. I felt my throat tighten so much I could barely breathe. Later that night, my phone buzzed with a new message from Zach. I didn't mean for it to go this way. I just thought it'd be easier without all the extras this year. Can we talk? Easier. Really? They called excluding a 9-year-old easier. Easier for whom? For the adults arranging their perfect, curated holiday feed? Easier for the couple who'd been planning this spectacle since August? Easier for the people who'd keep buying sponsored posts and boutique cocoa while telling the rest of us to tighten our belts? I didn't answer. Jonah surprised me. He took the phone, scrolled through Melissa's pictures like he was reading a book he already knew the ending to. He looked at each glowing light, each beaming child, each mountain of wrapped presents. Then, without the young boy theatrics of hurt or pleading, he said, flatly, "They act like we don't matter." That sentence landed and changed everything. I didn't have to explain why I'd sent the tuition screenshot or why I'd refused to keep pretending. He understood. In that small, quiet moment, any hope of a gentle reconciliation evaporated. And then, just as I was starting to think I could steel myself for whatever came next, a notification popped up on my phone. New voicemail. From Zach. The message was short, clipped, and the tone made my skin crawl. He said 3 words that felt like a threat wrapped in an apology. I played it back once, then again. My hands were shaking. What he said next was the kind of thing you don't expect to hear from your brother, especially not at Christmas Eve morning. I woke up to my phone buzzing like it had a personal vendetta against me. Notifications stacked on top of each other from the family group chat, a chat that had been basically a ghost town for weeks. Normally the only action it saw was Aunt Brenda forwarding some recycled meme from Facebook or Melissa dropping another must-try holiday recipe link. But that morning? It was lit up like Times Square. The very first message was from Melissa. "I don't appreciate the passive aggression, Tyler. You could have just talked to us like adults." Passive aggression? That's what she called standing my ground? Then Zach chimed in. "Things got out of hand, but you don't take it out on Emma. She's a kid. You know better." I actually laughed out loud at that one. So Emma was a kid, but Jonah wasn't? My son was just one of the extras, too inconvenient to invite? And then came Mom's novel of a message, so long I didn't even bother to scroll all the way through. I caught enough to know the beginning was guilt-tripping, the middle was full of flimsy excuses, and the ending was basically a command. "We need to fix this before dinner tonight." That's when it hit me, they still thought I was coming. Even after the lie, even after I pulled the tuition payment, even after Jonah asked me why not us, they assumed I'd fold. Show up. Smile. Pretend everything was fine. Instead, I typed back one clear, final message. "Jonah and I will not be attending. Don't worry about gifts for us. We won't be part of this anymore." Then I muted the chat. Not even 5 minutes later, my phone rang. Not Zach. Not Melissa. Emma. I stared at the screen for a long second, thumb hovering, before finally answering. She was crying, her voice shaky. She said she hadn't known about the party. She thought we were coming. She told me she'd even bought Jonah a gift, a Switch game he'd been talking about for months. And then, softly, she asked if he was okay. I told her he was fine. I didn't pile the weight of her parents' choices onto her shoulders. She didn't need to carry that. But then she said something that stopped me in my tracks. "Honestly, I don't blame you. They've been acting weird for a while. Like, fake. I don't even think they like each other half the time." Emma. The golden child. Stanford Student Council. Always playing perfect daughter. And now? She was cracking too. She sounded tired, worn out from the performance. Before I could even respond, another voice cut through. Melissa. Whether she'd been eavesdropping or just walked in, I don't know. But her tone was sharp, cold. "You are poisoning this family. You're turning your son against us, and now my daughter's in tears." Click. I hung up. That night, Jonah and I made pizza from scratch. The kitchen smelled like garlic and flour, and we laughed at how lopsided our dough turned out. We curled up on the couch with old Christmas cartoons, and he fell asleep halfway through Home Alone, curled up against me. Around 11, I carefully slid one gift under the tree. Just one. The Millennium Falcon Lego set I'd hunted down online, custom edition. I'd been saving it, waiting for the right moment. Tomorrow morning would be his. Before heading to bed, I checked my phone one last time. A new message. From Zach. Timestamp, 10:46 p.m. Mom's crying. Everyone's miserable. I hope you're happy. That's when the truth finally crystallized. They weren't apologizing. They weren't even sorry. They were just angry that I'd stopped playing my role, the reliable backup, the provider, the fixer they could count on to pick up the pieces when they overspent or overpromised. But I wasn't that person anymore. And the scariest part for them? Neither was Jonah. Because something had shifted. And this time, it wasn't just me drawing the line. It was my son seeing the truth, too. And once a kid sees it, you can't unteach them. 2 days after Melissa pulled her little stunt with the welfare check, my phone rang again. This time it was the school counselor from Jonah's elementary. Her voice had that careful, measured tone people use when they're trying not to spook you. She asked if everything was okay at home. Said someone had filed an anonymous report claiming Jonah seemed isolated, neglected. I asked who made the report. Of course, she couldn't say. Confidentiality. But come on, we both knew exactly who. That night, I sat Jonah down at the kitchen table. His legs dangled off the chair, his sneakers tapping against the wood floor. I asked if anyone at school had talked to him. He looked down and said quietly that one of the recess aides had pulled him aside. Asked if he was scared at home. My heart clenched. He's 9. He shouldn't even know what that question feels like. That's when I picked up the phone and called a lawyer. I didn't even know exactly what to ask for. I just knew I couldn't let Zach and Melissa weaponize my kid's safety. If they were willing to lie to social services, what else would they try? The next morning, my lawyer helped me draft a cease and desist. I sent it to both of them. Clear as day, no calls, no drop-ins, no accidental packages, no fake wellness checks. And I made sure to copy my lawyer and the family group chat, so there'd be no question. Silence. Finally, blessed silence. Until it wasn't. Because later that week, I came back from lunch break and found my mom sitting on the hood of my car. Just, waiting. The way she used to when she'd pick me up after school, like nothing had changed in 20 years. Except everything had. She didn't ask. She begged. Begged me to come back, to smooth things over, to stop this Cold War that was breaking the family apart. She said Melissa was just emotional, Zach was under pressure, and everyone needed me. Then she pulled out an envelope and pressed it into my hands. Inside were unopened Christmas cards, from 3 aunts, 2 cousins, even Emma again. One had a $200 gift card tucked inside. She said it was their way of apologizing. I asked why none of them said sorry when Jonah got left out. Why none of them spoke up when my kid was sitting at our dark tree, asking why we weren't good enough. She didn't answer. Instead, she cried. And this time, it wasn't the guilt-tripping act. It was raw, messy, real. She admitted she was scared. Said without me helping with Emma's tuition, the family fund I used to top off was drying up. That Zach hadn't told Melissa how deep in debt they really were. That they might lose the house. And I should have felt vindicated. I should have felt some satisfaction seeing the cracks finally show. But instead, I just felt cold. Because I finally understood, all those years I thought helping made me important, useful, needed. And maybe it did. But it also made me easy to exploit. And the second I stopped playing that role, the whole illusion shattered. And here's the part that surprised me most, I didn't want revenge anymore. I didn't want to make them pay. I just wanted them gone. Out of Jonah's life. Out of mine. Out of the space we were building together. That night, Jonah and I sat side by side on the couch, pieces of Lego scattered across the coffee table. We finished the Millennium Falcon together, his hand steady as he clicked the last section into place. When we leaned back to admire it, he looked up at me and asked, "Dad, is Christmas always just going to be us now?" I put my arm around him and told him the truth. No. It'll grow. But only with people who deserve to be part of it. The welfare check wasn't just an insult, it was a declaration. A line in the sand that Zach and Melissa crossed without even hesitating. I didn't realize how far they were willing to go until Jonah's school called. The counselor left me a voicemail, polite but careful, asking if I could come in for a routine discussion. The moment I stepped into her office, she shut the door and lowered her voice. That's when she told me, the district had received a report. Somebody had claimed Jonah might be emotionally neglected. It wasn't a teacher. It didn't come from inside the school. It came from outside. From someone who wanted to stir the pot. And even though she couldn't say who filed it, I didn't need her to. This wasn't concern. This was payback. Melissa's brand of payback, the kind dressed up with fake smiles and Instagram filters, hiding knives behind Christmas wreaths. Something in me switched off right then. The anger drained away. What replaced it was colder, sharper. I wasn't going to argue, beg, or reason anymore. I was finished. That same night, I sat down with my lawyer and filed a formal cease and desist. No more contact. No gifts accidentally delivered to my doorstep. No unexpected visits. And absolutely no more reaching out to Jonah, in any way. I copied my mom in the notice and made it clear, if anyone tried anything again, the next step would be legal action. The next morning, the family group chat went dead. No more guilt trips. No more excuses. Just silence. Until 3 days later. That's when I walked out of my office after lunch and saw her, my mom, perched on the hood of my car, just like she used to wait for me after high school. But this wasn't nostalgia. She didn't look angry. She looked drained. tired in a way that went bone deep. She didn't even say hello. The first words out of her mouth were, "You can't do this to us." I asked her, plain and steady, what exactly I was doing. She spilled everything. Melissa was unraveling. Zach was behind on the mortgage. Emma's tuition crisis had worsened, she might have to leave mid-semester. And the family's so-called emergency fund, the one I'd been quietly padding for years, was empty. My aunts, cousins, even in-laws were starting to whisper questions. She opened her bag and pulled out an envelope. Inside were Christmas cards from relatives. Thick envelopes, one heavy enough to have a gift card tucked inside. She said it was their way of saying sorry. But the timing told the truth. None of those cards showed up before Jonah was cut out of their party. Not one of them came when my kid was sitting in front of our tree asking why we weren't included. They only arrived when the tuition check stopped. When the safety net I provided was gone. I asked her one question, why didn't anyone say sorry to Jonah? She didn't answer. She just kept repeating we're family, that I was punishing everyone over a misunderstanding, that Melissa was just acting out, that Zach was under pressure, that they needed me back. She said things were falling apart without me. I told her the truth, if your family crumbles because one person stops covering the bills and patching the holes, then it was never a family, it was a convenience. A system that only worked because I kept bleeding myself dry. That night, when I got home, I found Jonah curled up on the couch, a blanket draped over him, a half-built Millennium Falcon Lego resting in his lap. His face was soft, peaceful. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilt. I didn't feel pressure. I didn't feel that constant, gnawing fear that if I didn't keep everyone else afloat, everything would collapse. Because it already had. And we were still standing. We were more than standing, we were okay. Better than okay. The people who used us, who lied and twisted reality to protect their image, they were the ones scrambling now. Me? I didn't want revenge anymore. I wanted peace. And sitting there, watching Jonah breathe evenly in his sleep, Lego bricks scattered like stars around him. I realized we finally had it. The silence didn't last forever, it never does. A couple of weeks into the new year, the family started creeping back like nothing had happened, like enough time had passed that scars would magically vanish. First, Aunt Brenda with a long-winded text about fresh starts and putting things behind us. Then a cousin sent a video of their baby taking wobbly first steps, like a toddler's milestone was supposed to stitch over betrayal. And then Emma. She reached out with a real apology. Genuine. I didn't shut her down. I just wrote back thanks. Short. Clean. But I didn't open the door to more. Then came the envelope. Thick, expensive cardstock. Gold lettering pressed deep into the paper. An invitation, my cousin Amanda's little boy was turning 5. Backyard party, Saturday. Everyone's coming. Would love to see you both. Jonah noticed it sitting on the counter. He asked if everyone meant Melissa and Zach too. I told him yes. He didn't flinch. He just went quiet for a beat, then said, we should go anyway. I want to see if they pretend again. I didn't expect that. But I didn't argue either. So we went. It was every family party you've ever seen, fold-up tables covered in plastic tablecloths, kids sprinting around in sticky packs, country music humming out of a Bluetooth speaker, a cooler stuffed with juice boxes and cheap beer. It was comfortable. Familiar. Maybe a little too familiar. And the moment we walked in, I felt it, eyes landing on us like heat lamps. Some people waved, stiff and awkward. Others avoided my gaze entirely. Melissa was there under a patio umbrella, oversized sunglasses perched on her face like she was hosting a charity gala, not a 5-year-old's birthday. Zach stood beside her, red plastic cup in hand, pretending to laugh too hard at something Uncle Dave said. Of course they spotted us. And of course Melissa made the first move. She crouched down to Jonah's level like she'd practiced in the mirror. Her voice soft, rehearsed. We're so glad to see you. We missed you. The party wasn't the same without you. We never meant for anyone to feel left out. Jonah just stared at her. Calm. Steady. Then he said, you invited every cousin. Every neighbor. Even hired Santa. You didn't forget us. You just didn't want us. Her face flickered. Like her mask slipped and she didn't know how to reset it. Before she could recover, Jonah added, you don't need to lie anymore. I know what you did. That look, I'll never forget it. It wasn't shock. It wasn't confusion. It was exposure. Melissa stood there, unmasked, undone, by a 9-year-old who refused to play along. Zach tried to bluster in, muttering something like, buddy, we just wanted to keep things simple this year. Jonah didn't even glance at him. He turned to me and said, can we go? We walked out hand in hand. No one stopped us. No one called after us. Not even a goodbye. Back in the car, Jonah was quiet. I asked if he was okay. He nodded slowly, eyes on the windshield. I don't think they're going to change, he said. I don't think so either, I admitted. Then he surprised me again. He looked out the window, calm, almost wise. I don't want them to. They can be who they are. We'll just be different. That night, we finished the Millennium Falcon. Clicked the last pieces into place and set it on the shelf above the TV. In our little living room, it stood like a trophy, not for a battle won, but for a Christmas no one else would ever understand. A month later, I cut the last thread that tied me to them. I closed the joint account Mom had used to slip in emergency fund checks. I pulled myself out of every family group chat. I told my lawyer to make the cease and desist permanent, expanded, airtight. And then I stopped waiting for apologies, explanations, or any last-minute miracle that would make it all make sense. And the strangest thing happened. I didn't feel bitter. I didn't feel vengeful. I felt free. I realized I didn't need to punish anyone. Life was already doing that. Zach and Melissa still had each other, but just barely, from what I heard. Emma had deferred a semester, crashing on friends' couches instead of Stanford housing. Mom was out there trying to stitch the family quilt back together, but the threads were snapping. The truth is, the family wasn't falling apart. It was just showing itself for what it always was, a system built on certain people being useful, and certain people keeping quiet. And Jonah and I? We were done being either. Now it's just us. Planning birthdays, stacking Lego bricks until the living room looks like a galaxy, watching Empire Strikes Back for the third time in a row because he loves the Hoth battle too much to skip it. He still remembers what happened, but it doesn't weigh on him. Not anymore. Because when the people who are supposed to love you show you that they don't, and you walk away anyway, that isn't weakness. That's freedom. And every day, we earn more of it. It's been 2 months since that birthday party. 2 months since I've spoken to Zach, Melissa, or Mom. No texts. No emails. No surprise visits. No apologies. And you know what's wild? I haven't missed them. Not once. At first, I thought the quiet would ache like an empty room. But instead, it felt like someone finally shut off a low-grade alarm that had been blaring in the background for years, so constant I'd stopped noticing how loud it was. Jonah doesn't bring them up often. Every now and then, he'll mention something, a meme his cousin would have cracked up at, or how Melissa always burned the marshmallows on her sweet potatoes. But his voice is even, detached. Just memories. Clean, neutral, stripped of sting. And in him, I see the shift. He walks taller now, shoulders back, self-assured. Like he knows being excluded wasn't about him. Like he understands that standing his ground wasn't just brave, it was the right move. He didn't lose anything. And maybe that's what I've learned, too. For years, I believed family meant obligation. That being dependable made me good. That sacrificing without complaint was my job, and my silence was proof of strength. But none of that mattered the moment they decided Jonah didn't fit into the picture they wanted to post online. That single choice, lying, excluding, pretending, undid every loan, every favor, every Christmas I held together with money and patience. They made their choice. And for the first time, I made mine. I chose Jonah. I chose peace. I chose not to walk back into a house where being good meant being silent, and being needed meant being used. And now? Now life is quiet. Simple. And for once, that feels like everything we ever needed. These days, our Saturdays look different. Jonah and I started volunteering at the local animal shelter, sweeping floors, walking dogs, handing out treats. He lit up the first time they let him name one of the fosters. He picked Chewy, of course, and within 3 weeks, that scrappy little mutt was curled up at the foot of Jonah's bed for good. We didn't just foster him. We adopted him. We built a shelf together for Jonah's Lego ships, his Millennium Falcon taking center stage like a crown jewel. And now we're saving, not for tuition, not for emergencies that aren't ours, but for something real. A trip north. Somewhere with snow. Jonah's never had a real snowball fight, never felt his gloves stiffen with ice or his cheeks burn with the cold. He wants to throw his first snowball, and I want to be there when he does. Work feels different too. Clean. Focused. No late-night messages begging for last-minute loans. No draining my savings to plug holes I didn't make. The world didn't collapse. The sky didn't fall. No one banged on our door demanding we come back. They're still out there, still posting their filtered smiles, still staging their picture-perfect holidays, but they're ghosts to us now. And maybe that's the lesson I didn't see before. Sometimes the ones who swear family forever are the first to throw you aside. And sometimes, walking away from them doesn't strip you of love, it strips you of weight. Weight you were never meant to carry in the first place. 2 months later, we're lighter. We're stronger. And for the first time in a long time, we're just getting started.